Rabbi says, hey, to go see Biffin played Knights of the Old Republic better than Andor. Dude, I am a real Andor fan. I will go to the mat for Andor. Right? I'm amazed how much I liked Andor. It was freaking awesome, right? As the season finale last night. Okay, so here's the deal with Andor. Yeah, one second. If I'm going to do Andor, I might as well pull up some Andor. Okay, 1 second. Star Wars Andor. We won't do an episode review. We won't do a season review. We'll do a series review, right? Because we've now seen the entire series. Dang it! I didn't mean to do that. Let's down this over here. Come on, here you go. Yeah, doink. There you go. Fine, share screen. Doink. Okay, okie dokie. Here's the deal with Andor, right? And it's, again, freaking awesome. I really, really, really love the show after initially really, really, really hating it, right? At first, I absolutely detested this show. But again, by the time it finished, I absolutely adored it. So what happened? Well, firstly, the quality of the second season, I think, was so strong, it just grabbed me in. And it was just, generally speaking, they dropped 3 episodes a week for the second season. They might have done for the first season as well. But I was so engaged with it that I watched all 3 episodes in a go, and I hardly looked at my phone, right? That's like you get very, very, very rarely nowadays, right? So that happened. But I think mainly I wasn't in tune with what this show was or what this show was trying to do. And the Star Wars universe, the Star Wars franchise, is actually very different from something like Star Trek or even Doctor Who. Like Doctor Who, I mean, other than, since Jodie, beginning of Jodie, had a sort of like house style, right? I mean, it would change, with over the years with fashion and technology, but basically it had the parameters of what it was. Right, and Doctor Who was very flexible, but it always had like that DNA of what Doctor Who was. And the same with Star Trek, right? Even through the very disparate Star Trek series, I mean, apart from like Discovery and things like that, which had none of that DNA in it whatsoever, which I think is why it failed so hard. Now, Star Wars is a different beast because you have different types of Star Wars all inhabiting the same world. Sometimes very comfortably, sometimes very uncomfortably. That's how the Star Wars universe has unfolded, right? Obviously, you have cinematic Star Wars, which is where this started off, which is like family-friendly fare, action adventure, sci-fi, right? Definitely for a big family audience, popcorn entertainment, right? That's why Rogue One really pushed it, I think, as far as you can go, right? But then you had different types of Star Wars. You had like things like Clone Wars, which I think are legitimately part of Star Wars, and because of their episodic format, right, and the TV, you had more time. You ended up getting more character and depth somewhat, and it was more of a soap opera to a certain extent, right? But it was a different feel, subtly different feel from cinematic Star Wars, right? And you see, that's what they're able to do. This is a very different type of show. This is a adult show set within that universe, and it's interesting because I went from watching the season finale last night to going directly to watching the watching Rogue One, and boy. Man, I thought Andor was so massively far superior, right? I was amazed how superior it was. I was very impressed. If not for nothing, it's because the problem with Rogue One is it was prime Disney Star Wars, and it had a female lead, right? This having a male lead, several male leads, with female characters, but having a male lead give it a masculine energy. And I think in of itself that helped. But also, again, this was much more of a Game of Thronesy type thing on a more real level, like more gritty, more like what the reality of life in the Star Wars universe was. And again, this is layered and complicated, which I don't think you could really say for the Star Wars movies. Now, where you so I like the way that there's a mosaic of Star Wars. You know, you can go from this to Rogue One. It dovetails beautifully into Rogue One, but Rogue One is a very different animal. Again, that's cinematic Star Trek and Disney's cinematic Star Wars and Disney Star Wars just somehow overcome by the quality of the production, and it hadn't gone off the rails yet. But then Rogue One obviously dovetails very nicely into Star Wars New Hope, right? And I like that, and all those things are qualitatively different. The sequel universe trilogy is detached from that mosaic, right? And that's why I really don't think it works at all. Right? For a Star Wars show to work, it's got to be attached somehow to the main, you know, as I said, mosaic of different things we've looked at these Star Wars through. Right? So this again was a fascinating show. It's kind of like Secret Army. Remember that from the 70s? And now I've seen the whole thing. I have a much better idea of what it is. But it's one of the main threads of it is about the creation of the rebellion, right? And it's all kind of like Stellan Skarsgård. Stellan Skarsgård, I would say, was the main character. Lutheran. Yeah, he like essentially built Yavin, right? It's there because I'll zoom in if you don't know who he is, right? But it's a very like I said. That guy. It's very textured and layered story, I think, with interesting as well, right? Yeah, that's certainly how I would describe it. It's very slow moving, not very slow. It doesn't have that Star Wars sweep, swoosh, so it feels slow moving, and I think that's maybe why I didn't like the first 5 episodes or so, because that's what I was expecting for a Star Wars movie, and rather than watching it as a piece of quality TV. Like this is one of the few things that deserve that huge budget. Like most shows I'm making for TV do not deserve that huge budget at all. So it's a kind of a sweeping epic tale told over 10, 15 years. Ostensibly centered around Cassian Andor, and his growth into a rebel leader, and how we got his story. Again, it starts off very far from the Empire, very far from Star Wars as we know it, right? And so again, I feel somewhat it creeps there very slowly. Again, this is a very grand level thing. So that's like one major thread, right? But it's got lots of other threads which I really, really enjoyed. Again, the conspiracy with Stellan Skarsgård, who runs this antique shop. Which has lots of little trinkets from like the prequel trilogy era, right? Which is kind of cool. Runs this antiquity shop, and he's the guy behind it, trying to pull the threads together for the rebellion. Mothra has a great story in it. I think she's fantastic. Genevieve, not sure what her name is, Genevieve something or other. Again, very, very compelling. This is about the very beginnings of the rebellion. And was it Bail Organa is in it, but he's not played by Jimmy Smith. So he's played by this other guy. He's pretty good. But I thought Jimmy Smith had AIDS or something because it's all shrunken down. Like, what happened to Jimmy Smith? Well, what's going on there? And apparently he had a conflict. So he couldn't film it. But he is a central character for this. So again, she had a great art. The Imperials earlier had the best arc. So this guy, like the head of the Imperial Secret Police? He was Qyburn in Game of Thrones, by the way. I love the methodical way in which they crush all resistance, right? And this Deidre is one of our underlings. This guy is kind of like a sad sack who becomes obsessed with Andor, and they end up with each other very, very weirdly. So This actually does stuff that Doctor Who and lots of shows today want to do, but fail at. But this does it intelligently. Like, it gives you a real commentary, a moral commentary on things, without feeling like you've been kicked in the face, right? You like towards the the way Doctor Who gives you moral commentary says, "Look, I'm trans. Aren't I great? I'm the bestest ever at everything." Right? That's the commentary you get in Doctor Who, right? Or Star Trek for that matter, right? The commentary here was, and I like this. You saw all the Imperial characters that you come to know over 20 episodes. Again, I love Deirdre. She was great. I mean, she was great, absolutely great. And the whole like Imperial intelligence network, right? You see them all coming to very, very sticky ends, right? As the Empire, devours itself. It's very much like the circular firing squad that was Soviet Russia, right? It's Ben Mendelsohn is great in it. He's always great. I really like Ben Mendelsohn. He's good in Marvel. He's good in Star Wars. Generally speaking, he's very, very, very good. So yeah, I like him a lot. And he's a great president, but he's going to be bumped off by Grand Moff Tarkin pretty darn soon. You see, like them capturing the Alan Tudyk droid. There's even Lutheran Stellan Skarsgård's assistant, who doesn't really get much screen time in the first one, gets a really good, compelling subplot in this, which I thought was great. But again, this is really about the birth of the birth of the rebellion. Like, this year starts. First it says 1 year later, so it's a year after the events of the first season, and it says BBY, so before the Battle of Yavin, 4 years, BBY 4, right? And then you get 3 episodes, and they move forward another year. And I thought that was just a great storytelling device. And it says, 1 year later, it starts off again, and then it says BBY 3, then BBY 2. So you've got this like sweeping story taking place over many years. And it really builds up nicely, right? I particularly like Mothra's story. I'm surprised. Again, no one's more surprised than me. But I would love to see another series like this, right? I would love to see, there's I think 4 years between the Battle of Yavin and the Battle of Endor, which is effectively Return of the Jedi. So I think they could totally do another series of like how they moved from Yavin to Hoth, and like, again, the somewhat the politics of the revolution, of the rebellion, and the empire. It's fascinating, especially in the different eras, because the one of the things that's fascinating about this is the creeping totalitarianism of the empire. When they start off like very like suspect at first. And then you get a much better idea of what it means when they come and say, we just dissolved the Imperial Senate. But both physically, I think they kill everyone. It's mainly about the building of the Death Star as well, which was really fast. Like in the first season, you got Andor. He's in prison, and you got to see how Imperial prison works, and they're building stuff for the Death Star, right? So you get to see how massive this project was. Right. Although, I have to say, in Revenge of the Sith, they in Revenge of the Sith, it ends up where you see them building both their stars, doesn't it? Right. So I don't know why you only see the first smaller one, right? Not the bigger one. It's fully armed and operational space station. Dun 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 dun. That thing's operational. How could it be jamming us if we don't know where? Oh, pull up! Dun, 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 dun. Yes, I mean we all know what happened. No, that stuff's good. But yeah, so look, I thoroughly enjoyed Andor. I'm saying I enjoyed it so much, I would recommend a Disney Plus subscription for the month to watch it if you haven't seen it. I hated the first few episodes, so I am going to go back and rewatch them because turned out good. There's not really much more to say about that. My name's Tzvi Lebetkin, the Rabbi from another planet. Please like, share, and subscribe, and ring that little bell. Ring the little bell so you're notified when new videos drop.